Good morning, my name is Izer. I'm here to talk about leishmaniasis surveillance. So here's a quick glance at what we're going to be talking about this morning. We'll start with a quick introduction and background of the disease itself, just so we're all on the same page. I'll mention a few stats about the number of cases of leishmaniasis, as well as signs and symptoms. I'll then move on to the main topic of the presentation, which is the visceral form of leishmaniasis. Lastly, I'll discuss the promising evidence that vaccination of dogs can control the disease in the human population, as well as what we should be doing in order to control this disease. So to start off, leishmaniasis is spread by the phlebotomine sandfly, which is pictured here in the PowerPoint. They serve as the vector for the disease. In size, they are at least a third smaller than a typical mosquito, and they also do survive on blood meals. The parasite leishmaniasis itself is spread through the blood, which is picked up by a sandfly that feeds on an infected animal or human, who then, during a later meal, spreads the disease to a non-infected individual, causing the infection. So there are three forms of leishmaniasis. They are the cutaneous, the visceral, and the mucocutaneous. The overall burden of mucocutaneous leishmaniasis is lower compared to the cutaneous and visceral forms, and 90% of the mucocutaneous cases occur in a localized geographic area of Bolivia, Belize, and Peru. So the focus of prevention is more tailored towards cutaneous and visceral forms. According to sources from the CDC and the World Health Organization, there are around 1 million cases of cutaneous leishmaniasis worldwide on the annual basis, and between 200,000 and 500,000 visceral cases, of which 20,000 deaths result in death. Moving on to signs and symptoms. The signs of infection with cutaneous leishmaniasis are mainly skin lesions, such as ulcerations of the skin, but we can see from the previous page that visceral leishmaniasis is a lot more serious and can result in death, where the cutaneous form usually does not. The visceral form affects the spleen and liver by causing enlargements of them. Some of the other clinical signs include fever that's on and off, weight loss, and low blood counts, including red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. So visceral leishmaniasis is also the zoonotic form of the disease. As I already mentioned, the visceral form is the most serious one, and since it's zoonotic, meaning the disease can be maintained and spread from animals to humans. In this case, they are the dog population. It makes the control of this disease a lot more difficult. With how serious the visceral form of the disease is, this presentation will be aimed at the control of the visceral form, mostly through first controlling the disease in the dog population. Another fact to mention here is the worldwide spread of visceral leishmaniasis. 90% of visceral cases occur in 6 countries that are listed here: Bangladesh, Brazil, Ethiopia, India, South Sudan, and Sudan. Based on the geographic location of these countries, we can see that the visceral form is spread all over the world, having a major impact everywhere from Asia, Africa, to South America, just to mention a couple. To give an idea of the disease burden, I created this pie chart with data taken from the World Health Organization's Global Health Observatory, showing the worldwide distribution of reported visceral leishmaniasis cases from 2013. I do have to point out that this is only the data that was reported, and the numbers are likely a lot higher because of the high underreporting of this disease. There actually is not a global surveillance of leishmaniasis, so the numbers of actual cases are not as accurate as they should be. So focus of attention needs to be directed to the 6 countries that I already mentioned with the highest burden of disease. As we can see, India has the highest number, with Brazil in second place. Brazil has also been the leader in the prevention and control of leishmaniasis, and their work, which I will talk about on the following slides, need to be expanded around the world. So I mentioned Brazil. Many people are starting to realize that the control of leishmaniasis in the dog population could be the key to controlling it in the human population. With that in mind, in 2003, Brazil was the first country to introduce a commercial vaccine called Leishmune, which is a canine vaccine against leishmaniasis. A study from 2004 to 2006 then followed up the vaccine to study its impact, and the results are in the following slide. So here we can see the results of the study that I mentioned. The link to it can be found at the end of this presentation on the references page. Data from the research paper was taken and put into this graph. The blue bar shows the percentage of dogs vaccinated in various districts in Brazil. The burgundy colored bar shows the incidence of canine leishmaniasis, and in yellow the official incidence of human leishmaniasis registered in each district can be seen. Number of vaccinated dogs was estimated by the vaccine manufacturer by the number of vaccines they distributed to veterinarians in Brazil. Canine incidence was calculated based on seropositivity of dogs that were determined by blood evaluation through ELISA assay and confirmed by indirect immunofluorescence test. Human incidence was determined through registered cases in each district. Looking at the graph, it can be seen that the more dogs that were vaccinated, the lower the canine as well as the human incidence was. So let's take here, for example, the first district seen on the left, the first bars, Central Seoul, 63% of dogs were vaccinated and human incidence decreased by 40%. On the other hand, in Verde Nova, which is more in the middle of this graph, we can see that only 4.35% of dogs were vaccinated and human incidence actually increased by 14%. The only district that shows no correlation between dog vaccination and human incidence is Norte, which is on the far right of this graph. So where can we go from here, just based on taking this information? First of all, I think we have to take after the example of Brazil and invest more time and money in leishmaniasis vaccination among the canine population. The data on the previous page shows much more promise. Review article out of Iran published less than a year ago, which is titled Vaccines for Canine Leishmaniasis, looked at various vaccination methods and reported that second generation vaccines might provide the best protection, which is what Leishmune vaccine is. Canine vaccination against leishmaniasis is only in the beginning stages and more research is necessary, but I believe that this is the most promising way to control this deadly form of the disease. Second, the World Health Organization needs to set up a worldwide surveillance to help standardize effective control methods. For instance, vaccination could be advanced by this surveillance system. Another problem many poor endemic areas and countries face is the lack of medication for the treatment of the disease for various reasons. The organization responsible for the surveillance system, could it be the CDC or the World Health Organization? They could also help out with that, making sure that medication does get to the countries that do need to receive it. And also the surveillance system will be able to provide with a more accurate number of cases and follow trends over the years to study whether or not the control methods are effective. Third, if vaccination isn't feasible and it won't be addressed by the surveillance system or any other organization, other control methods need to be used, which should also be directed towards disease control in the canine population. I think I mentioned that a couple of times. That's where the key is, in my opinion. Environmental environmental control of sandflies is very difficult because the habitat of the immature sandflies are variable, and therefore it's not possible to control the entire population that way. Another method that has been used is spraying house walls to control the adult flies. This method only lasts a short time, so in the end it's not very effective either. With that, we're again back to controlling the disease in the canine population, which in the past has been fairly successful with repellents. Um, so we're again, as I mentioned, back to controlling the disease in the human population. And lastly, as good public health professionals, the education of the public is a vital part of our job. Actually, a survey conducted in Brazil in 2012 revealed that only 83% of people know that leishmaniasis is spread by sandflies, and there's a lot of misconception in regards to how dogs are involved in the disease process. So better education is necessary for good control. So with good education, last thing I'd like to mention is signs and symptoms in dogs. Um, which is again skin lesions, especially on the face, ulcerations, hair loss, nodules, secondary bacterial pyoderma. These are very common to see, and other signs which are kind of similar to what human signs and symptoms are: weight loss, diarrhea, bloody nose, swollen limbs and lameness, and also low blood counts, white blood cells, platelets, red blood cells. But the only problem is only 1 in 5 dogs develop the signs mentioned here, and 4 out of 5, 80% of dogs are actually asymptomatic. So it's really hard to pick up the disease in the canine population. So bottom line, I mentioned this already. In my opinion, control of leishmaniasis should be directed at controlling the disease in the canine population, which will decrease human incidence and death caused by visceral leishmaniasis, which is the deadly form of this disease and causes the most deaths and burden around the world. On this page, my references can be found. The article that I mentioned where the data for the graph was taken can also be found here. I believe it is number 4 on the list. So thank you very much for your time.